Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corporal Matthew Howell. I am here with regards to strategic communications and here to introduce our guest today. Before we begin, I would like to start with like to acknowledge that we are gathering on Treaty 6 territory, and in the spirit of reconciliation, I offer my recognition and respect for those who made their first footprints on this land. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais souligner que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire du traité 6 et, dans un esprit de réconciliation, je tiens à exprimer ma reconnaissance et mon respect envers ceux qui ont laissé les premières empreintes sur cette terre. We are happy to be hosting this Crime Stoppers event. Today, we will be hearing from Viviana Botticelli of Alberta Crime Stoppers, Dave Barry, Chief Regulatory Officer for AGLC, and Chief Superintendent Gary Graham of the Alberta RCMP. The portion done by Chief Superintendent Graham will also be offered in French once he is done doing his part. I will now invite Viviana Botticelli to come up to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. January is National Crime Stoppers Month, and this year marks 50 years since Crime Stoppers was created to give the public a safe way to share anonymous information about crimes. To help mark National Crime Stoppers Month and raise awareness, iconic landmarks across the province, including the Calgary Tower and the Edmonton High-Level Bridge, were illuminated in red. Those red lights are a reminder that community safety is a shared responsibility and that Crime Stoppers is here to support the public in doing their part safely. I want to acknowledge our partners from the RCMP and AGLC and everyone here who plays a role in keeping Alberta communities safe. Today, the Alberta Crime Stoppers is launching its illicit tobacco awareness campaign across the province. Illicit tobacco is often misunderstood as a low-level issue, but is frequently linked to organized crime and broader community harm. This campaign is about helping Albertans understand that the price tag isn't the real cost, and reminding the public that Crime Stoppers provides a safe, anonymous way to report suspicious activity. Today, you'll hear from our law enforcement partners and regulatory partners who will speak to the broader community impacts, recent enforcement activity, and what illicit tobacco actually looks like. Crime Stoppers' role is to provide a safe, anonymous way for the public to report suspicious activity. People don't have to investigate, confront anyone, or put themselves at risk. If something doesn't look right, report it anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS or online at p3tips.com. If your tip leads to an arrest, you can qualify for a reward up to $2,000. Thank you.
I'll now be inviting Chief Superintendent Graham up to the podium.
Well, I guess I better stick to the script if you're translating. I was thinking about that. Well, good afternoon, guests and friends in the media. I want to thank you all for joining us here today for the launch of the Alberta Crime Stoppers' new anti-illicit tobacco initiative. And the Alberta RCMP, we're pleased to host today's announcement and to stand alongside with Crime Stoppers as they introduce this important community-driven program. Now, I'm Chief Superintendent Gary Graham. I'm the officer in charge of the Alberta RCMP's Community Safety and Wellbeing Branch. And to start, I want to offer congratulations to our friends at Crime Stoppers. They recently celebrated their 50-year anniversary, and for 5 decades, they've worked in communities right across the province, providing Albertans safe and anonymous ways to report crime. So their contribution to the public safety is significant. And on behalf of the Alberta RCMP, I want to thank them for their unwavering commitment over the past 50 years. My role in the Community Safety and Wellbeing Branch of the RCMP is to address the root cause of crime and to take steps to target societal issues that lead to crime in Alberta. Not exactly a small undertaking, but we know it's not something that we do alone. One of the most effective methods of facing these kind of challenges is developing strong relationships with the communities we serve and strong working relationship with partners like Crime Stoppers. Now, for years, our organizations have worked side by side. The RCMP, we lead the operational investigations, the enforcement side. Crime Stoppers, they empower Albertans to share information anonymously and safely. Now, together, this coordinated approach enhances the efficiencies and the effectiveness of law enforcement. And the value of Crime Stoppers really can't be overstated. Their tip line provides crucial information about suspicious activities, community hotspots, information that often allows our officers to begin investigations that they might not otherwise been able to do, or it would have not otherwise been possible. Now, the tips that they share with us and the information, it is also gives us the ability to share the nuts and bolts of the information with our partners like AGLC, Dave Barry, who can bring their expertise and their resources to help further our shared goal of keeping Albertans safe. Now, Crime Stoppers makes it easier for Albertans to take an active role, keeping communities safe, and we're certainly grateful for the role that they play. Crime Stoppers' new illicit tobacco initiative is a step forward in helping ensure the well-being of Albertans. Now, people might think illicit tobacco is not really a big deal, that well, it's just a few cheap cigarettes, some sort of minor infraction, doesn't really hurt anybody. But that's not true. Contraband tobacco operations do hurt our communities. Now, maybe in ways that many people haven't thought about, but they do undermine our local businesses, both large and small. They negatively impact legitimate businesses. They compromise and damage our tax base. How so? They reduce the funds for our schools, our hospitals, our public services. And furthermore, maybe what people don't realize is that the sale of illegal, illicit tobacco is frequently linked to, and as Viviana had shared, organized crime. I'll give you an example. Last November, during a traffic stop in Lloydminster, our officers stopped a semi-truck. Didn't have proper documentation. Once they got inside that truck, guess what they found? Over 8 million illegal cigarettes. So the value of that, $7.65 million. If we say, well, okay, almost $8 million. The profit then would have gone directly into the pockets of the large-scale organized criminal enterprise. And they would have used that money to fund other activities that hurt our communities. Now, over the past 5 years, we've actually seen a steady increase in charges related to illicit tobacco products. So in 2021, we had, 12 charges related to those crimes. Last year, well over 100. That underscores the need for continued public awareness and community reporting. We're proud to work with Crime Stoppers, and we appreciate all the hard work that they do in helping their fellow Albertans and keeping communities safe. And I sincerely hope that this new campaign, that they will be able to bring and to continue to help improve the safety and the well-being of the communities that we serve. And with that being said, I would like to welcome Dave Barry, who I mentioned already, and I'll let you introduce him.
Okay, Ms. Casey, now I'll go to the French part first. Sorry about that. So I will do the French translation as I said, and then I'll be inviting Mr. Barry to come forward. So, bonjour, chers invités médias. Je tiens à vous remercier tous d'être ici aujourd'hui pour le lancement de la nouvelle initiative de Crime Stoppers Alberta contre le tabac illicite. La GRC de l'Alberta est heureuse de se joindre à Crime Stoppers pour présenter ce programme communautaire important. Je suis le caporal Matthew Howell et traduis présentement les paroles du surintendant principal Gary Graham, officier responsable de la direction de la sécurité et du bien-être communautaire de la GRC de l'Alberta. Tout d'abord, je tiens à féliciter nos amis de Crime Stoppers. Ils ont récemment célébré leur 50e anniversaire. Depuis 5 décennies, ils travaillent dans la communauté de toute la province, offrant aux Albertains des moyens sûrs et anonymes de signaler le crime. Leur contribution à la sécurité publique est considérable et, au nom de la GRC de l'Alberta, je tiens à les remercier pour leur engagement sans faille au cours des 50 dernières années. Le rôle de la direction de la sécurité et du bien-être communautaire de la GRC est de s'attaquer aux causes profondes de la criminalité et de prendre les mesures pour cibler les problèmes sociaux qui mènent à la criminalité en Alberta. Ce n'est pas une mince affaire, mais nous savons que nous ne sommes pas seuls dans ce problème. L'une des méthodes les plus efficaces pour relever ces défis consiste à établir des relations solides avec les communautés que nous servons et des relations de travail solides avec des partenaires comme Crime Stoppers. Depuis des années, nos organisations travaillent côte à côte. La GRC mène les enquêtes opérationnelles et veille à l'application de la loi, tandis que Crime Stoppers permet aux Albertains de partager les informations de manière anonyme et sécurisée. Ensemble, cette approche coordonnée renforce l'efficacité des forces de l'ordre. Il est impossible de trop insister sur la valeur apportée par Crime Stoppers. Leur ligne téléphonique fournit des informations cruciales sur les activités suspectes et les points chauds de la communauté, informations qui permettent souvent à nos agents d'ouvrir des enquêtes qui, sans cela, n'auraient peut-être pas été possibles. Les informations qu'ils fournissent ne s'arrêtent pas à nous. Elles sont partagées avec les communautés et nos partenaires tels que l'AGLC, qui apportent leur expertise et leurs ressources pour nous aider à atteindre notre objectif commun, qui est d'assurer la sécurité des Albertains. Crime Stoppers permet aux Albertains de jouer plus facilement un rôle actif dans la sécurité de leur communauté et nous leur sommes reconnaissants du rôle qu'ils jouent. Le lancement de la nouvelle initiative de Crime Stoppers contre le tabac illicite est un pas vers l'avant pour assurer le bien-être des Albertains. Certaines personnes croient que le tabac illicite n'est pas si grave, qu'il s'agit simplement de quelques cigarettes bon marché et d'une infraction mineure qui ne fait pas mal à personne, mais ce n'est tout simplement pas vrai. Le commerce illicite du tabac nuit à nos communautés d'une manière que les gens ne soupçonnent peut-être pas. Il sape nos entreprises locales, grandes et petites, a un impact négatif sur les entreprises légitimes. Il nuit à l'assiette fiscale, réduisant les fonds destinés à nos écoles, nos hôpitaux et nos services publics. De plus, ce que les gens ne réalisent pas, c'est que la vente de tabac illégal est souvent liée au crime organisé. Par exemple, en novembre dernier, lors d'un contrôle routier à Lloydminster, nos agents ont arrêté une semi-remorque qui ne disposait pas des documents requis. À l'intérieur du camion, ils ont trouvé plus de 8 millions de cigarettes illégales. On parle d'une valeur de 7,65 millions de dollars. Presque 8 millions de dollars qui auraient bénéficié au crime organisé et non à nos communautés. Et cela aurait pu être utilisé pour faire d'autres crimes dans le futur. En bref, cet argent aurait servi à financer tout ce qui nuit à nos communautés. Au cours des 5 dernières années, nous avons constaté une augmentation constante des accusations liées aux produits du tabac illicite. En 2021, 12 accusations liées au crime ont été portées, alors que l'année dernière, on parle de plus de 100 accusations. Cela souligne la nécessité de continuer à sensibiliser le public et encourager les signalements par la communauté. Nous sommes fiers de travailler avec Crime Stoppers et nous apprécions tout le travail acharné qu'ils accomplissent pour aider leurs concitoyens albertains. J'espère sincèrement que cette nouvelle campagne leur permettra de continuer à contribuer à l'amélioration de la sécurité et du bien-être des communautés que nous servons. Merci. I would now like to invite Dave Barry to come forward and address the media.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to be here to recognize National Crime Stoppers Month and help launch this new illicit tobacco awareness campaign. AGLC shares this strong commitment to stop the illicit trade of tobacco and protect our communities and Alberta businesses. The availability of contraband tobacco products has a significant negative impact on our communities and Alberta businesses. The availability of tobacco products has a negative impact on our province, both socially and economically. In the past 5 years, Alberta has seen a rise in contraband tobacco activities, and during that same time, we've experienced a drop of more than $500 million in tobacco tax revenue. That is a loss of $500 million that could have been spent on important government programs and services such as healthcare, public safety, and essential services that all Albertans rely on daily. From a community safety perspective, the distribution and selling of contraband tobacco is a magnet for organized crime. Criminal groups often use these profits generated from those sales to bolster their operations and fund other illegal activities, such as including firearms and drug trafficking. Contraband tobacco also harms Alberta businesses by causing revenue loss for retailers that offer legal products with regulatory safeguards to customers while employing Albertans and contributing to their communities. In a recent study from Ernst & Young, it's estimated that contraband share of tobacco market in Alberta is 30%. The availability of cheap but unsafe contraband tobacco undermines the livelihood of many businesses, negatively impacts our communities, and means less money for provincial services. The impact is real on many fronts. AGLC is proud to work in collaboration with the Alberta government, with our law enforcement partners, and with ongoing support of the legitimate tobacco industry to investigate and pursue those who are offered and involved in contraband tobacco. In 2025, AGLC expanded our investigations unit capacity by adding 10 more officers to the Tobacco Enforcement Unit. And this fall, the government updated legislative fines for buyers and sellers and distributors, significantly increasing penalties to support a tougher stance on illicit tobacco. The end goal is to keep consumers, communities, and businesses safe and thriving. It is a challenging landscape. However, AGLC's Tobacco Enforcement Unit is a national leader in enforcement innovation. The team works province-wide and in the last year has laid 263 charges. In the last 24 months, we've been involved in seizing nearly 16 semi-trailers full of contraband tobacco. And it's not slowing down, and we're definitely not capturing all the contraband tobacco out there. Which is why I'm proud to say that we get to showcase the incredible work of our partners like Alberta Crime Stoppers and the Alberta RCMP. AGLC is excited to be here to help promote this new campaign to raise awareness about the harms and illicit tobacco and what it causes in our province. Thank you again for inviting me to be here today and participate.
All right, so thank you to all our speakers today. If there's any questions from the media, we can open the floor to questions. Just to let us know who the question is for, and then for Heads of Canada, if you need a French translation, just let me know. Sir? Yeah. I'll ask while he's up here if anyone has any questions for RCMP, just do it at the same time to make it easier.
Where would you say, or can you say, is most, or the locations where most of this illegal products coming from being manufactured?
Well, in general terms, I would say criminal enterprise use the arterial highways, same as lawful businesses do. So I would say there's a significant amount being brought into the province and shipped from the province on arterial highways.
But originating, are you any leads in where the product's originating to get a little closer to the source?
Well, I'm going to say I know from personal investigations that I've done that a good number of them do arrive from Ontario, say, from the province. And I would say that in a lot of cases, there could be drop-offs in other provinces, but I don't have any specifics that you're looking for.
So manufactured out of Eastern Canada or across the border?
Well, it depends on what part of the process that you, like tobacco can be brought in and actually ground and produced into pouches and cigarettes here. It could be shipped to another province, and then the cigarettes brought into here. So there's a number of acts. I mean, Dave's been working under provincial statutes, but we also have federal statutes that we deal with under customs and excise, non-duty paid tobacco.
Talk a little bit about the campaign and just what kind of police work's going to be going on, and what the goal is.
So the RCMP have a number of avenues, not only just the uniform member that's at a detachment, say, for example. The RCMP have some specialized teams we use for crime reduction, for example. The province is divided up into 4 regions or districts. Each of those districts has a crime reduction team of members that are not responding to calls for service, but they're responding to backup, support, drug investigations, illicit tobacco investigations. Then we have another team that is working in the division. It centers out of this building. Again, crime reduction team, plainclothes units that spend time. And then traffic also have a roving traffic program that specializes in traffic enforcement, as well as being able to recognize traveling contraband and traveling criminals. So there's a number of issues that we have. Direct answer to your question also would include alerting each of the districts that this month is something that we're going to pay attention to and concentrate on. So that message will go to right from the 1-month constable to senior management at detachments, that's an emphasis that they want to pay attention to.
Any kind of goals, numbers you're hoping to hit or anything? Or?
Yeah, I think our goal would be 0 offenses, not achievable. But no, we don't actually set like we're going to seize 11 trucks or $55 million, though it's too intangible to know what the traffic is like. Once you begin to concentrate on a particular highway or a particular zone, anybody that's worth their salt in business, even if they're on the criminal side of the house, they find other ways and other routes, and they evade the police and authorities, and even Dave's AGLC, until we figure that out.
How much of a shift does it take from a detachment when you say, hey, we're focusing on this for this month? How does that kind of change things for each individual?
Well, this kind of practice is very thematic. So, for example, and one that you will all be very familiar with, is impaired driving during Christmas time. So all the detachments spend a great deal of time and concentrate on impaired driving road checks. So this is something the RCMP do all the time. We concentrate on drugs, we concentrate on seatbelt campaigns, and we use a number of agencies, our provincial traffic program, as well as our detachment program, and as well as our specialized groups.
I had a question about the concerns regarding health. To what extent these products are toxic compared to classical cigarettes? Do you have any numbers or example about the toxicity and the kind of products inside?
Okay, well, you're slightly outside of my area of expertise, but I would say we always advise our investigators to be aware and be on guard for the unknown. So we already know criminal enterprise can be involved in very toxic products, whether that's a thing like fentanyl coated, maybe something was produced and trafficked through an area where fentanyl was. So that message is very thematic in the RCMP. We strongly encourage protective gear like masks and gloves. And every situation is an assessment, a risk assessment by the investigators at the time.
My question was more about the consumers. The consumer, maybe young consumer, who choose to consume that kind of cigarettes and compared to the legal ones. How is it concerning for their health?
Oh, I see. Well, I think we would leverage a response with our relationship with AGLC, what they would find with provincial health agencies, with Viviana. Maybe she'll get some information on Crime Stoppers that might alert us that particular tobacco product is toxic. But this would be really no different than the care and caution in many ways we do at Halloween. Our kids go out. There's a lot of nasty people that put a lot of nasty things. And you'll notice now that things like candied apples and those kind of things that used to be handed out, no longer handed out because the risk is too high. So even in society, we do risk management of ourselves, but direct answer to your question, as soon as we were alerted that there was an issue, we would deal with that with public education.
I had a question, Commissioner of Public Education. What should residents or citizens look out for so that they can know that the product is contraband?
Okay, well, some of that will be Dave's expertise. I can tell you I worked in an anti-smuggling unit concentrating on illicit or contraband or non-duty paid tobacco. So, but maybe I'd let Dave, would you be okay to maybe address that? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If there's any follow-ups, we'll come back. Sure.
To the question about what should the public be aware of, don't ever trust a drug dealer, for your personal health. Just like cannabis products, cigarettes are highly regulated. There's a lot of safeguard controls that Health Canada oversees in the production of cigarettes. That's completely absent in contraband tobacco. So you're putting your own personal health and safety at risk. And in addition to that, there are regulatory controls in the cigarette itself that help prevent fires. So self-extinguishing filters and burn rings that prevent a cigarette from burning down to the filter and starting a fire are absent in contraband tobacco products. So these types of products can be linked to fires, and we've heard from our colleagues in fire services that they're a real danger in that regard. So two aspects there that make contraband tobacco extra unsafe, more so than it already is. With regards to, what should you look for as a consumer? First of all, the tobacco tax stamp is usually absent on those products unless it's fraudulent, but there's an example there on that billboard about what the stamp looks like. In addition to that, regulated and legal cigarettes have very plain packaging. We have a model display here that clearly indicates bright colors and the kinds of things that you would see in contraband tobacco that make it clearly obvious to anybody that it's not a legal regulated product. And third and foremost, if you're purchasing it from a convenience store, it should be in your standard roll shutter where Health Canada has visibility, and as well as the province of Alberta, visibility restrictions on that product. So behind a roll shutter, that's out of sight until it's time to order it, and then the clerk will open that up and give it to you. Contraband, it's typically dealt with out of a drawer somewhere, but it's not on that roll shutter behind the counter, I can guarantee you. And that's another indicator that it's contraband and not legal.
With the price of legal tobacco and products going up all the time, is there any relationship with that compared to the volume of contraband that you're seeing? Because people don't maybe want to pay the prices for the legal product, therefore looking for the illegal product.
It's certainly understandable from the consumer's perspective that a price of a regulated legal pack of cigarettes is substantially higher than it is for contraband. And so we can understand how a consumer would want to be driven towards that lower price product. But when you balance the health aspects of it, the safety aspects of it, and then also how it's contributing to organized crime, I mean, it really presents a compelling case to avoid it at all costs.
What do you see as the most realistic kind of point where someone would see something that they would get in touch with Crime Stoppers about? Is it like seeing someone on the street who's smoking something they already bought, or is it getting something from a vendor that they know is suspicious? Or can you just kind of talk about what you're expecting most of these calls to sound like, where they saw these items?
Sure. Well, there's a few things from this campaign, raising public awareness, that's going to benefit us all. First of all, if I have a family member or a friend of mine that I notice is using contraband tobacco, I'm going to point it out to them, that the things that we just talked about here about safety, in particular their personal safety, how they're putting that at risk. But in addition to that, from a retailer's perspective, if my business, whether it's a convenience store, gas station, etc., is being threatened its viability and they have to lay off staff because they don't have enough revenue, and I know that there's a competitor down the street, for example, that's selling that product. We're hoping to get those kinds of tips from the public and from other business folks that can drive our investigators there. Whether that's the Alberta RCMP or law enforcement partners across the province or AGLC's Tobacco Investigations Unit, we're more than happy to look at those complaints.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you have any more questions for, I think, yeah, I saw follow-ups for,
I'm just curious on timeline-wise, when did this campaign kind of get brought up of we want to run this, and is there a tipping point that got you to the point where we were going to pull the trigger and kind of go forward with this campaign?
Well, actually, that's a great question for Crime Stoppers, I think, to answer. But maybe just before she does, if you don't mind, on the tail end of what Dave was talking about, and a question from here, what would the public see and how would they know to report? So very typical things that they would see would be just plain knowledge. I know a guy, he's got tobacco, right? And so he's got it in plastic bags. You got to roll your own. Or I know a guy, and he's selling it super cheap. So those kind of tips are very helpful. It's usually about people, knowing about people, and quite often it can be soured business partners out in the field, and they have their own reasons why they want to call in a tip or a report. It could be a competitor for their illicit trade and the things that they want to do. So those are the very common things. Now for police, I used to work in a unit, so I would go through various businesses, and I would just quickly look at the packaging. I would look at things like colored tear strips that they have, counterfeit types of stamps, and those kind of things. So police could do that. Maybe a person on the street that's associated with selling cigarettes, a legitimate business. Now that's quite possible that they would call in a competitor that they know is not selling duty paid or that's illicit tobacco. So those are very common things that the police would look for and the information that we very typically would receive.
There were government measures in December to sanction harshly the buyers and the sellers with higher fines. Does this already have an impact on the consumption?
I think that'd be a good question for Dave to talk about. But Viviana, do you want to just talk about your initiative?
Annually, Crime Stoppers runs a campaign for public safety across Alberta. And so this year we chose organized crime as a topic to drive calls to our tip line. The average public member doesn't see weapons or drugs, but you have seen a pack of cigarettes. And so that was a logical kind of place for us to start to tackle the organized crime, to drive the calls to the tip line, to refer them to the law enforcement. Hopefully that helps.
Up here for a second and maybe clarify a few things too, because I know it's been a bit jumbled here and there. With regards to, you brought it up earlier, the danger to youth. One of the big things we need to also go over is that a youth can't buy a pack of cigarettes at the convenience store. So one way or another, you're already adding that level of danger to a youth or young person because they can't normally purchase that product. So that's one thing that that I felt kind of needed to be clarified. With regards to your last question, could you repeat it? Because I had something and it's... Oh yes, sorry, yeah, okay. It just came back to me now, sorry about that. So with regards to statistics, it's often, it takes us more time than a month to kind of figure out whether or not something has had an impact. It's normally, you're talking several months or even up to a year to really see the curve, and because often we'll compare it year to year. It's the easiest way, or we'll do it like by quarter. So this 3 months versus this 3 months, or the same 3 months last year versus this 3 months this year. So I would say that if since these were implemented back in December, there's a better chance that if we say we take a 3-month average, then let's just say around May we might be able to have a better idea of the impact that it's had. As of right now, it'll be really hard to give you a definite answer on that subject.
And about organized crime, to what extent so tobacco contraband then finance other activities such as weapon or fentanyl trafficking?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say what every organization, how they're going to divide their income, right? So, but what we've noticed too with tobacco, and I think that's kind of what the government was hoping to do with regards to upping those fines, is that often enough the benefit, the cost and cost benefit essentially. So the cost to the organization versus the benefit of having it, and the risk as well, is a lot lower with, say, tobacco than with drugs or guns. You lose a shipment of tobacco versus a kilo of drugs. That could, the difference in cost and in all the organization behind it is completely different. So often what we'll see is that they'll use that as a way to just make easier money, not necessarily big amounts, but still, as you saw, we're talking about $8 million. Is still massive, but they'll use that in order to then fund more risky ventures thereafter.
So in the seizures you made, sometimes you noticed that there were other projects?
Yeah, that has happened in the past. And I'm not necessarily to talk about what we've seen recently, but in the past with regards to these criminal organizations, we've often see, and I've seen it a lot when I put out the releases, it'll be, okay, we seized this drug, this firearm, and then 1,000 illegal cigarettes, because whatever they can make money with, they will. And cigarettes tends to be an easy money maker, and as I said, tends to be less risky, which is also why we're hoping that this campaign will bring up that information, because we want to add more risk to these crimes. We want the criminals to realize that doing this is no longer risk-free. Is that everyone's answered questions? All right, thank you very much. We're going to close this off here.